Administration is pursuing climate change policies that enrich Iran and China. By restricting our production of oil from Anwar, by closing off portions of the Gulf of Mexico to oil production, by restricting pipelines, by restricting new oil refinery builds, by telling the oil companies of America that they need to be out of business in the next decade, Joe Biden is emboldening Iran, financing Iran, and emboldening China. We're strengthening China's hand with rare earth minerals and precious resources for making battery components. We're strengthening Iran by allowing Iran to make billions of dollars from China through selling oil, which, by the way, Iran is not supposed to be able to do, but we've allowed them to do it anyway, because in the words of this administration, we got to balance supply and demand. We could be picking up the supply. We could be a net exporter of oil more extensively than we are, but the Biden administration doesn't want it because of climate change. And now Michael Schellenberger has this, which is somewhat funny. This is from NBC News. No, from Bloomberg. Replacing U.S. coal plants with solar and wind is cheaper than running the coal plants. Here's the subheadline. This is from January. It now unequivocally costs less to build new renewable energy projects than to operate existing coal plants, according to a new analysis. And now, from October, from Bloomberg, New York rejects offshore wind's request to raise rates. Regulators turn down jaw-dropping proposed adjustments. Vote risks threatening the state's renewable energy goals. Why? Because it actually turns out, contrary to the January analysis, that the solar and the wind farms are more expensive than the coal plants. They lied. The wind industry needs a 54% increase in energy prices to be able to survive. The coal-powered plants did not. Time and time again, the energy proposals of this administration of the left have emboldened America's enemies, so much so that Iran made billions of dollars from China and used that money to fund Hamas. Despite all of the bellyaching out there denying that Iran is involved, denying there's knowledge, there's story after story after story after story that, Iran had no idea. Iran was out of the loop. Iran didn't support it. Iran's been funding Hamas for years. This is John Kirby and Shannon Bream. Listen to this exchange.
Well, of course, Iran is broadly complicit here. And of course, the resourcing and training they've given to Hamas has obviously helped Hamas function and be able to conduct the terrorist attacks that they have been able to conduct. We have held Iran accountable. The attacks on our troops in Iraq and Syria have greatly decreased because of our retaliatory strikes. There's the longest truce in Yemen now in place, saving literally tens of thousands of Yemeni lives. We have added military capabilities into the Gulf region, additional ships, different aircraft.
So you've got all of these Democrats in Congress and all of these Democrats in the White House saying Iran had no knowledge. Iran was not involved. And here comes John Kirby under pressure from Shannon Bream and says, well, of course they've been helping Hamas the whole time. Of course they were complicit. How is Iran complicit? Well, this administration doesn't want us to produce oil, but it needs oil to lower gas prices for American consumers who don't want electric cars. So it had to allow Iran to sell the oil to China to lower China's demand for everyone else's oil to balance out the supply and demand curve. That then enriched Iran. Iran then used the money not to feed its people, but to fund Hamas and Hezbollah. Hamas and Hezbollah bought weapons, arms, built rockets, and bought drones, and Iran bought technology from China to build weapons for Russia to go to Ukraine. That's what happened because of this administration's policies. There is no conspiratorial tie here. It is a direct link between Joe Biden's climate change agenda and Iran's ability to make money off the sale of oil. And when Iran makes money off of oil, it doesn't use that money to take care of its people. It uses that money to advance jihad on the planet. Now, here's the worst part of it. It's easily foreseeable. That's the worst part of it. Easily foreseeable. Most every prominent voice on the right told Joe Biden this would happen. Most every prominent voice on the right predicted Iran would fund terrorism, when Joe Biden turned a blind eye to their oil sales. Most every prominent voice on the right knew this would happen. But this administration and the left is so captured by the environmental activists, it doesn't matter. You know the silver lining for the left and what happened? 1,440 carbon emitters no longer emit carbon. They don't exhale carbon dioxide anymore. It's a horrible, horrible thing to think about. That the environmentalists in this country and around the world, they want population reduction on the planet. And the Biden administration policies fed into a terrorist attack that took 1,400 plus people out of breathing and exhaling carbon dioxide on this planet. And so for the environmentalists, it's okay. It's the cost of doing business. Funding Iran, funding terrorism saves the planet because we are not producing oil. And by not producing oil, by not digging for lithium in this country, by not mining for rare earth minerals, by being committed to an electric car revolution that profits China, we're benefiting Iran, we're benefiting China, we're benefiting our enemies. China, Russia, and Iran are building an axis of evil before our very eyes, and they're using our environmentalist climate change worryism to do it for them. They're using our policies to benefit themselves. We're funding billions of dollars to China for the resources necessary to buy the batteries to make the electric cars, and we're allowing Iran to produce the oil to give to China. We're profiting these countries. Our policies for climate change are enriching not our opponents, not our rivals, not our trading partners, but our enemies. And we now have a death toll in Israel because of those policies. The left will say it's conspiratorial. They'll say, "Oh, you're connecting dots crazily." They'll use a little meme of what's his name who's drawing the strings across the board. It's real. It's true. You don't have to connect the dots. It's right there before your very eyes. We allowed Iran to sell oil to China because we didn't want to produce it ourselves, but yet we needed to keep prices low. We allowed China to take our money to mine the rare earth minerals, and China uses that money to build weapon systems for Russia. Iran uses the money China gives them from the sale of oil to build weapon systems for Hamas and Hezbollah and Russia. It's all because of our climate policies, because the left in this country has decided to embrace this death cult of climate. They laugh and they scoff and they deny it, and at the same time, they enact the policies that make it happen. You cannot deny what has happened. A horrible, brutal attack by Hamas, funded by Iran, off the oil sales we allowed them to give to China because we needed them to balance supply and demand concerns without us having to get our hands dirty producing oil from this country. You want to bring peace to the Middle East? You maximize oil production in the United States so we're less dependent on Saudi Arabia. We're less dependent on Iran selling oil to China. We're less dependent. We've got more energy independence in this country, and we've got a stronger national security. But the Biden administration won't do that because of the climate change alarmists.